Oh, this is such a gorgeous view in the morning. Check it out. This is our trail. There's a lot of sunshine, I hope you can see. This is the trail into our gully, one of the areas I take Ripley on our morning walks. Down this way there is the creek, and it's just a beautiful area on the property, especially when it is 40 degrees out, because you turn this first bend in the road and it drops about 4 degrees, 5 degrees, just from being close to the creek and in the shade. Moments like these make it very easy to count your blessings and have a heart full of gratitude in the morning, because I'm now strolling in the beautiful forest while the sun comes up through the trees next to a creek. I got a long day ahead of me. Sky is blue, the puppy is somewhere and happy. I got coffee and it's just a good day. If it is your first time here, hi, hello. My name is Melanie and I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes. In our Tamtara Grows series, I take you along as my mother and I build our homestead in the mountains of British Columbia, Canada, on a beautiful 56-acre property. And today we have not so glamorous chores to do, but important nonetheless. My lovely partner brought me out some compost this weekend. Much obliged, thank you, good sir. And we're under attack from what I'm assuming is chipmunks. They come into our greenhouse off of, I believe, a pine tree. There has been casualties this spring. I moved out a lot of my starts into the greenhouse. Things that weren't main food crops because I didn't want to risk it. But things like sprouting broccoli. They've taken out all of 3 varieties of sunflowers that I start indoors. They've taken them all out. I guess they really love sunflower seeds. They took out all of my peanuts that I started, so I actually have no peanuts, which I was really excited to start this year and try, so I'm gonna have to try and get some more of those. But those are all completely gone. And a few other things. So I YouTubed it, as you do when you're at a loss, and I discovered some really DIY kind of chipmunk traps. So we're out here before the sun in all of its glory burns us out of the garden area. Just finishing up taking Ripley on his morning romp around, and we're gonna start doing some physical labor. Today I'm actually filming with my GoPro because I'm trying to use it more when I'm out in the garden. I am terrified of ruining my DSLR, my big camera. It's gorgeous. I use it to film in the greenhouse. I have used it in the garden. But on days where I'm actually just doing work with dirt, I just don't want to ruin the camera. So we've got the GoPro, which is, let's be real, what GoPros are designed for. They're a lot more durable and sturdy and waterproof and compact and ready to go. So bear with me while I learn and become more acquainted with my GoPro. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me and it's still cinematic enough for y'all. All right, just in time. The sun is now on these beds, but we've got it amended with our top dressing of compost. The beds themselves are rather uneven, so in some areas there's 5 inches of compost, in other areas there's 1 to 2. So my goal was to bring it up roughly par on the actual wood surroundings of the bed. In this area, I kind of selectively dressed to some of the perennials I have planted. I still need to weed in this area and heavily mulch. So this is just to get them a little bit of extra zhuzh to help them get going. I actually transplanted This guy and this guy right against the fence line, those are both valerian bushes. They were in the bed that I'll be amending next, and they were actually quite dark purple, which with my minimal research that I put in, is said to indicate a phosphorus deficiency in the soil. Very interesting stuff, because I moved them over here and voila, there is no more deep purple. And when I say purple, friends, I like deep purple, dark purple. You thought the plant was intended to be purple, but in fact it was not. It was a phosphorus deficiency. It is a big change for sun exposure. They get a lot more sun here. Oh, mosquitoes. They get a lot more sun here, but the soil's a lot better. Hopefully once those roots get down deep enough and they become more established, they'll be able to have enough access to water. I'll mulch to help retain some additional moisture, so hopefully the sun exposure and the added heat over here won't be too big of an issue. We also have, this is a big, gorgeous looking oregano bush I transplanted over here last fall or spring, sometime in the summer. I'll link to the video when I created this bed. There's some yarrow. Back there is lovage. I also transplanted that over here this spring. It was in one of the raised garden beds, like the salad bed area, and it was huge. So I divided it up. We're gonna give some to friends, and I put the clump we're keeping over here. And then we have some volunteer sunflowers in the front. There's some perennial black-eyed Susans at this end, as well as right at this end. Now into what we refer to as the potato patch, which has no potatoes in it this year. I just amended the front area of this garden bed because this is the new extension of this garden bed. Everywhere else is about 3 seasons old this year. It's all no dig. There is cardboard down, and we've just continued to heavily mulch and add compost each year, except for this front section, and as well as a section actually going down right in between these 2 irrigation hoses. About that much of this garden bed is also new. However, I have garlic planted down at the end. I also have my leeks planted here already with a lot of volunteer radishes, so I'm not going to amend that with compost. They seem to be fine and growing. I will monitor it and amend if I need to, but in the front here, there was just less soil in general because this whole bed, hopefully you can see it, is actually on quite a big grade. There is a significant slope downhill here from one end to the other end, so there's just naturally more soil at this side of the garden bed than at the front side here. That's also because I've tried to level this bed off a bit by adding a log and additional soil down at that far end where the garlic is now growing. So this side just needed some additional nutrients and to have some more zhuzh, as it were. Never say the word zhuzh, but now that it's in my head, I'm probably going to drop that word like 20 times in this video. What can you do? So while we're over here, I wanted to show you this little area back here that is tarped. As you can see, we have some incredible bracken. Do you guys know what bracken is? It's this stuff. It looks like a fern. In fact, is not a fern. Grows quite thick, pretty big. It's all along here. It's actually insanely pervasive, and that is what is bulging up this lumber tarp here. My lovely friend Sarah came in and she cleared this area for me. And we were hopefully going to be adding in a gate right here eventually that will then lead down into the high tunnel area and kind of finish off this loop. This whole area has been under development in the last 3 or 4 years. This area needed to be squashed down because it would get overrun with bracken and rose bushes and whatever else grows in here, like these little trees, all of this fun stuff. And it actually harbored a lot of rabbits and everything to be able to have access to the backs of these garden beds and then subsequently the rest of our landscaped garden area. Not that we're against living in turn with nature, but like I mentioned earlier, chipmunks and rabbits and such have been eating our stuff, which is unacceptable. We have 56 acres and they can have free range and live everywhere else on this property except for our immediate cultivated 2 acres. So we're kind of going to be intentionally eliminating some of their habitats, and that just basically means, because like this forest is right up behind my greenhouse, as you guys can see, the greenhouse is right here, and that's actually the pine tree cluster that the chipmunks have been using to kind of shelter themselves and then make it into the greenhouse, or at least that's our theory. As well as behind this potato patch, as you can see, big cedar trees right into the forest. So as we expand the garden area, we're having to also push back and claim some more forest area. That does not mean logging big trees. What that mostly means is picking up the bottom line of the branches in the forest and clearing the underbrush, so things like rabbits and chipmunks and, I don't know, mice, rodents, voles, oh, gophers, those are a bad one. Those are a doozy. So that they don't have cover in order to make it to our area. They don't like to run across an open field because then they become susceptible to predators. So clearing up the underbrush, lifting up the bottom branches on the tree so it's a lot clearer. It looks nicer as well, helps mitigate some fire risks. But yeah, that's our pest prevention plan, as it were. Now that I am done composting those guys, like I said, now that I'm done composting and amending those beds by the fence, just in time for the sun to hit, it's so hot over there, we're going to switch sides and start to amend the beds that I completed the irrigation on, the beds that have the blueberries, and then we're going to move on to hopefully taking out some chipmunks. And with all of the additional irrigation hose in here, and the fact that I haven't weed whacked yet at all in this area, and we have some cleared trees, this is definitely intermediate wheelbarrow work. Okay. Oh, it's getting toasty. I have definitely just dumped all of my compost right on top of my irrigation pipe, and that is not best practice. Do with that information as you will. Is there potential for the compost to clog up holes in my irrigation? Yes. I didn't want to move it. It's in line with two other garden beds, so they're piped together. If I move this one, the other two move. I also still have to come through here and add additional nozzles or water regardless, so I'll have an opportunity to move things around and check on it. Not to mention it's very light compost, nothing's wet, it's all very dry and fluffy, and it's really easy just to pick the pipe up and out after I'm done spreading some compost around. So definitely put a lot in these beds, but out of all of the garden beds I have, these two beds have produced the least, and every kind of plant minus really resilient herbs have struggled in this bed. I planted 2 squash plants in this bed last year, and they got 2 feet tall, maybe 2 feet long, or however you want to word that. I have an oregano in here that's doing good, a thyme plant that after 2 years is finally doing good. There's tarragon that's doing all right. We've got a hyssop plant, some sage, and some catnip. That's all that has really thrived here. And thrive for that is even a stretch. They're not as big as they could be. I've seen them look better at other places on our property. So these beds are definitely hurting. They're under a pine tree, so there is some additional acidity to counter, but more than anything, a lot of pine needles drop into the bed itself, and I would say that we're probably competing more with the roots of the forest. As you can see, it's not necessarily clear-cut back there, because, like I said, expanding gardens means we have to mitigate and manage more forest. So if anything, I'm assuming it's a lot of root competition and lack of nutrients. This is the bed that I moved those valerian plants out of, so there's definitely a lack of phosphorus here because of those dark purple plants that are now perfectly healthy and green. So we're going to be doing a lot of amendment in here. I actually just dug trenches and buried my bokashi compost in this bed about 2 weeks ago, and hopefully that adds some good nutrients for the biome. As you guys can see, a lot of compost into this bed, but these are the beds that need the most amendment. There's definitely a lack of nutrients, so I am just nailing down the irrigation, as you guys saw in a previous video. So water is taken care of. I have buried bokashi compost in both of these, so I'm hoping that, first of all, aerates and provides nutrients to any nematodes and the biome at deeper levels in the garden bed. Now I'm top dressing. There's probably a good 4 or 5 inches. Well, this might be dramatic. A good couple inches of compost on that garden bed. And I'm going to turn the irrigation on once I get this top bed weeded and amended. And then as I go throughout the year, I'll add specific nutrients. If I can identify what the nutrient deficiency is, I might fertilize with organic fertilizer so that I can get a crop and a harvest out of these beds. But because I'm not building new and expanding the garden with more garden beds this year, I'm really trying to hone in on water and the biome of my soil. That essentially is gardening to me, taking care of your soil takes care of your plants. So I'm trying really hard to hone in on that this year. It's a process, it takes years to get the healthiest of soils, so doing my best. I had to take so many roots out of here that it's been like 2 hours. Look at this bad boy. He's pinned down by rocks right now, and that rock is marking additional roots that I have to cut off. This pine tree has really taken over this garden bed. When we first put this garden bed in here, I will link somewhere to that video, there were not this many roots. Crazy what a pine tree can do when it really wants to come and get the nutrients out of the soil, I suppose. Holy smokes, I'm hot, sweaty, and dirty, so don't mind my face. The sun is almost hitting this bed. As you can see, it's got the front one that we've done first. Now it's coming to this guy. We have completed the task of getting the compost on the garden beds before the sun obliterates us. This root I have left out here. Hopefully you guys can see that. I have to come back with a saw of sorts and chop those roots out. There's also a root underneath this rock. I just didn't want the soil to cover it back up. That is why I've not pushed the compost all the way back to this garden bed. I did just do a bit of an update video on our Chippewa and Northland blueberries that we planted last spring together. As you can see, they're coming back to life. Stay tuned for that video. It'll be in a couple of days. Irrigation is spread out, looking good. I am red. It is hot. It's about, I think, 11, so it took us just a couple of hours. I ended up having to spend a lot more time weeding this bed and getting some of these tree roots out of this garden bed than I had initially intended, but thankfully, also to this tree, we are still in the shade, so I managed to make it happen. It feels good to come out here early in the morning and get a whole project done, like amending all of my beds. I've almost gone through the yard of compost that I had, so I've got one more bed I'll probably spread compost on, but I'll wait to do that in the evening. I got all of the beds amended that I had set out in the morning to get amended, so that's a win. We are now moving on to chipmunk time, but first, snacks. We are back. Like I said, we avoid the heat of the day around here. I have been gathering some equipment for these DIY chipmunk traps. We're doing 2 buckets. We're gonna do 1 bucket in the greenhouse and 1 bucket by the gardens / by the trees that I'm assuming harbor chipmunks. And I actually grabbed spits. We only have dill pickle spits, so I hope that doesn't deter chipmunks. I don't have any other sunflower seeds, and you want something that's going to float on the top of the water. Well, I do have other sunflower seeds, but they're seeds. You know what I mean? All right, I got my 2 buckets. I've got my 2 sticks. Now I just need some shade and some water. Old ice cream pails. This has to be deep enough so that the rodent drowns. Your sticks just have to be wide enough that your rodent can walk up them. Some people will put nails so that it does not slip or fall off of said bucket. I'm not going to do that. If I come out here tomorrow and that's off of the bucket, maybe I'll consider making an improvement, but I'm lazy, and if I don't have to do it right now, I don't want to. And our spits. Now we just need to fill these guys up halfway with water. All right, I have the buckets filled halfway up. Like I said, it needs to be deep enough so that our chipmunk can't touch the ground, but also can't grab the top. So I'm actually gonna get a bit more water in this one. Buckets half filled with water. We've got the wood plank going into the bucket. And now, whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. You put these guys in there just enough so they can't really tell that there's water. We're tricky. We're being tricky. Oh my gosh. It smells like dill pickle. I'm going to use a bigger piece of wood here because I want to be able to put seeds at the top to trick them in there. So I'm going to use this guy. It's just a piece of a pallet that we just took apart. So I'm going to put just a couple here. There. A treasure trail. Maybe I should count so I know if they come out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, they're also all over the floor because I spilled. So, they're going to get a little bit of a snack. It's going to be the best day of their lives. And it's also going to be their last. Dark jokes don't come for me. It seems to be the way of the world that whenever a homesteading channel, farmer, gardener makes any video about pest mitigation, killing of said rodents, people are up in arms. Now, they can live anywhere on my property, just not in my greenhouse, and they're eating my food. Mother has gone as far as to purchase live traps, and we have spent time driving gophers to different locations where we live and setting them free. But at the end of the day, doing stuff like that, like once rodents know where something is, whether it's a chipmunk or a gopher or a rabbit, they go back and tell all their friends, and then my stuff is all gone, and I just can't have that. So if you have a problem with me killing chipmunks, I don't know what to tell you. It's war. It's war. We've got that one outside, and now I've got a plank, the same setup, exactly the same, inside of the greenhouse to hopefully protect all of my plants that are sitting 4 feet away from it. Hopefully they like how easy it is to get this stuff. Oh, I think I have like just the perfect amount. So like I said, you're just hiding that this is water. Seriously, this is the perfect amount, this bag of spits. Hopefully chipmunks like dill pickle. If not, we'll try again. But we'll give it a couple days. This is annoying because it is right in the path, but that's okay. Gotta risk it. Hopefully I don't trip. All jokes aside, I don't enjoy the idea of having to kill chipmunks. It's not like I want to do that, but if I have to, I have to. This is what it comes down to. We have live traps. We've put in effort to relocate other rodents, gophers, rabbits, etc. But I'm not going to try and trap chipmunks. They're just gonna have to leave. Especially because I'm about to plant out my beans and all of my other root crops, and I gotta get to direct sowing the beds that I amended with all of that compost this morning, so chipmunks gotta go. I've seen other people do this in different ways on YouTube. I have never done this before. This is an experiment and a test for me. I will link in the description to the video that I watched that I'm copying, so go and check that out if you want more insights into the chipmunks or the mice or whatever. On that note, my friends, wish me luck on my chipmunk endeavors. Thank you for hanging out with me while we amended those garden beds with some compost this morning. It is, while cooler than noon, it is still very hot, so I'm going to get the heck out of the greenhouse before I faint. Probably go play with my dog in the creek. I hope you all have a fantastic spring. I hope your to-do lists are getting shorter and you're not feeling too overwhelmed or daunted. As always, I will see you back here very shortly with another video. May the force be with you. Bye-bye for now.